This episode is brought to you by Deal. Managing a global team is complex. Deal makes it simpler with payroll, HR, IT, and compliance, all in one place. That's why over 35,000 businesses trust Deal to hire, pay, and manage teams worldwide. See how Deal works at deal.com/Adrian Tan to learn more. That's DEEL.com/ADRIANTAN. Deal, your forever people platform.
I prefer to call myself content creator rather than an influencer because I don't promote stuff. I don't sell things. I prefer to create things. And in a way, these are love letters to my daughter in the future. If she doesn't understand why people are looking at her differently or treating her differently, then she can look at all these stories and help her gain an understanding. Your scars tell a story, so I started posting about that, and I find that it started becoming more relatable to people because a lot of people still struggle to find their authenticity, right? It's very surface level at the moment. Everybody has struggles. I don't believe that you live life without struggles. A lot of people forget that you need to be human, right? Which is why I named my platform Human Algorithm. Which is why in the age of AI, being human has become almost a lost art already.
Hello, Shawn. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Adrian. Big fan of yours. I'm a newbie podcaster. I only have 11 episodes compared to your 161 episodes. So
Actually got more.
still learning.
Actually got more.
Still learning.
I also-
Taking notes from you.
I also got other podcasts, but happy to share more notes with you. But I've seen some of your stuff that you're doing. I think the interesting thing about modern day podcaster is you guys jump straight to video.
Yeah.
I was still very much in the audio aspect of space, but happy to share more. But today is all about you. Before we get going, how would you normally introduce yourself?
I introduce myself as Shawn. My pronouns are he, she, they. I'm trans, non-binary, gender fluid person, and I'm a content creator.
What were you doing before you started this independent journey?
So I started my journey in advertising. I was doing copywriting, creating ads for businesses on social media. So at that point of time, it was only Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, right? So it was the three that people wanted to get a lot of money from in that sense. And it was still very early days of advertising, social media advertising at that point of time. So everything was we set the rules also. We created the playbook for it and everything. But I didn't really enjoy it, even though I get to say I use social media for work, right? But I wanted to do like long form writing. So I always wanted to be a journalist in journalism. And that was when after my third agency, I pursued it. So I became a sports journalist first. And then I went over to CNA where I did a lot of current affairs stuff. And then I went back into advertising, but from a different lens where I was reporting on advertising with a publication called The Drum. Spent 5 years there, and then I went to my most recent role, which was at Campaign Asia, where I was the tech and media editor before I decided to start out on my own.
You're a content creator,
Yeah.
but I can see you are also doing podcasts because there's
Yeah.
a piece of content. You are also working on some fractional stuff as well. Could you break it down for us? Exactly what are the pillars that you work?
I prefer to call myself content creator rather than an influencer because I don't promote stuff. I don't sell things. I prefer to create things. And that to your point, which is podcast, right? So my platform is called Human Algorithm. And I started my platform because I wanted to create representation both for myself, because I grew up as a queer person where I didn't see any representation around. And also for my daughter who is neurodiverse and she might be on the autism spectrum. So I wanted to create a platform where I tell stories of leaders who are undergoing through their own personal struggles or who have went through their own personal and how it has shaped them. And I want to use that to influence other leaders or other companies create change, whether it's through advertising or whether in the workforce, right? So I do that through a newsletter, but also through the Human Algorithm Pod, where I talk to different guests, whether it's they have OCD, whether they went through bulimia or personal tragedy. I talk to a wide range of, and in a way, these are love letters to my daughter in the future. If she doesn't understand why people are looking at her differently or treating her differently, then she can look at all these stories and help her gain an understanding.
I actually started writing a book just for my kids to read. And it came about because my father passed away when I was in Sec 1, 13 years old. So I always have this feeling that I may also die early by virtue of inheriting his DNA. lah. So I started this project. It is still in the going because you write, you stop, you write, you stop. But also because I wanted to leave behind a message. In case I do pass early, then there's something for them to look forward to. And something to learn more about their father. Because when my father passed away, it was sudden. And I barely knew the guy.
For me, I always done things for a purpose, but it was never for someone. And when my daughter came around, now I'm doing things. I started to realize I'm doing things for a purpose for her. Completely different.
I've spoken with many, I don't know, whatever you call it, freelancer, fractional, independent folks.
Yeah.
And every one of them has different backstory to what motivated them to take the first step. I understand your motivation. I just want to understand how difficult it was. Because transitioning from a corporate role to your independent role or your own thing, it's always difficult.
Yeah.
I've been through it a few times. Every time it's difficult.
Yeah.
I always think, hey, I got experience. I did it. This is like the fifth time. Fifth time, I'm still scared. I still feel very vulnerable. How was it like when it struck you, and how did you reconcile with it before it got started?
Good question, because like you, I've been through it myself. Like I've been laid off 3 times, and the third time, the first time it was very hard. The first time it felt like you lost a girlfriend or you lost a boyfriend, that kind of thing. Right? By the third time, I wasn't numb to it, but I came to a clear understanding that we are always at the mercy of someone else if we are building something for them and not for ourselves. And I realized that I needed to take control of my own narrative, right? Because I've been the narrative of someone else for so long. And I think the transition was to a point. One thing that I found out was it's weird to have so many free hours. Because it was always 9 to 5, right? And now that you're your own boss, now that you are, technically running your own business, I struggled with it for quite a bit. Like, I procrastinate, I can leave this thing later, and then I end up working at midnight. I end up going to bed late. And then I reflected on it and I realized that why I'm doing this is also so that I can spend more time with my daughter. And if I am tired all the time, and if I'm thinking of work all the time, then I'm no different than being a 9 to 5. I might as well go and send out more resumes and find another job, right? So what I did was to set myself a 4-hour work day. So I wanted to work 4 hours a day where I can have enough time to do things that I want, to build a business, to do things for my client, because I'm also doing fractional for my clients, right? And then ultimately, by evening time, I need to be able to spend time with my daughter. And that means that, what my usual day looks like is I will wake up at 6 a.m. and within an hour of 6 to 7, 7:30, I will do my most important task of the day, whatever it is, I'll do my most. And then at 7:30, I will take my daughter to school. I ride a bicycle, so to get exercise in and also to get sunlight in, where it just helps me to spend time with her while being able to, get that kind of creativity flowing, because, we need to free our mind. That once I send her to school, I will spend another hour. And I literally set a clock, I set a timer on my phone because I want to give myself a deadline, right? So I set a 1 hour timer on the phone, and then when I come back, when I'm eating breakfast, I'm on LinkedIn, where I post usually like in the morning 7:45. So after that, when I come back, I'm just answering comments, DMing people, new connections or people who visited my profile, and then also commenting on other people's posts, on networking, because ultimately LinkedIn is a net. So I do that for an hour, and then after that, I'll take a break. So I will go for a walk, or I will sit down in the sun, do nothing, or I'll just listen to long lectures on YouTube. So these are like philosophy lectures that are maybe too deep for me, but it also help me to think, right? So and that's what I want to think. So once I do that already, I do that for half an hour, then I'll go for exercise. So I will go and do Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu or yoga. And then in the afternoon, that's when I do my meeting. So in a sense, I only do my meetings in the later part of the day because I keep my morning free for myself, for my daughter, and for my own business. Because by afternoon you'll be too busy, you have too many things to get in. So my meetings are in the afternoon, and then the last 2 hours are doing work, additional work, maybe looking at what coming up next, be like planning my master class and all that, right? By 6 p.m. I'm home with my daughter. After dinner, I'm reading to her, putting her to bed, and then I go to bed. And now the struggle is to stop doom scrolling. So what I do is I will intentionally, so I train my algorithm where I'm being fed what other business influencers or business creators are doing, and also doing my own reading as well. So that's what my day looked like.
When I first started being independent, this was back in 2014, 2015, I was a career coach. So suddenly so much time on your hand and you don't really know where to start. And I went on the other spectrum. I overcompensated. And to your point earlier on, you started to put in overtime and all that. And it just become, what the hell? Why am I going through this? I remember, and that reminded me of something that my friend told me that his wife told he cannot work 40 hours a week for someone else, but he can work 100 hours a week for himself.
The hustler culture.
Which is very ironic.
Yeah.
And I think come COVID, almost every one of us, Singaporean especially, went through that. I kept getting stuck at the dining table because I don't have an extra work office. And fortunately, because they need the dining table for dinner, then I get chased away all the way.
During COVID, I also at the dining table. But COVID, I still at 9 to 5, but I literally kept the same timetable, and then in the evening go downstairs. You cannot go gym, right? So go downstairs or go to a car park, work out, or go for long walk.
I follow this guy called Eric Partaker. He's a CEO coach on LinkedIn, and he has this book called 3 Alarms. So basically, he set 3 alarms on his Apple Watch. One is to remind him to work out. One is to remind him to focus. And the last one is the most interesting, is to remind him to be the world's greatest father. That is the label, no? So I label mine the same thing. So every day, 7 p.m., world's greatest father. So whatever I'm doing, I just fuck it. Shut down. Important or not? Is it life and death or not? If I don't do it now, not life and death, right? Okay, tomorrow do. Then I'm going to spend some time with my kids, have a chat with them, play with them, disturb them a little bit.
I think that's necessary for you because you have 4 kids, right? I have 1 already and it's so hard, but 4 kids for you definitely need that world greatest first thing.
For many people who did the transition to people to like us, going independent, support system is very important. When I first started, because we were young, my wife was literally employee number 1. By virtue of her participation, she supported me lah. But interestingly, along the way, after my exit, when I decided to start again, the support wasn't really there. I guess it's a change in life stages, lifestyle, etc. So that was really very hard. I was literally going through some of the struggle myself without the ability to confide. Because, if I were to confide in her, then she'd be like, I tell you right. How was it like for you?
When I still was in the corporate world, my wife was doing what I was doing. So in terms, she was trying to run her own business. She's a photographer, and she was trying to look for studios, set up studios, and this was before COVID. And luckily enough, like she actually found a space just before circuit breaker, right? Thankfully, when circuit breaker happened, she decided not to take it up because we all know what happened with all the empty spaces and all that. But I think she has tried over the past few years to run her own business and all that. But she's not a natural entrepreneur. Like, she doesn't ask, like, I have a 4-hour schedule, you have the 3 alarm system. She doesn't really set a system for herself. So when we came to a point where I decided to start my own thing, I was like, why not we switch roles? You go look for a corporate full-time job. That might suit you better. So I say, if you go out there, you get a corporate job that can pay you more than what I can earn, then fine, I'm happy with that. And then I will build up my own business. So in a sense, we kind of switch roles. And now whatever I'm doing, it's kind of showing her as well that it's possible to run your own thing, because now she understands about personal branding, because she didn't used to do it all the time. And he was always buying ads, buying like posts and all that. And now I'm showing another way for her.
And what's she doing right now?
So she's still a photographer, but she works in a confinement center where people who go there, they pay quite a big sum. If you got 4 kids, I think you will reach 100K. Yeah, but people who stay like once they give birth, the mothers who give birth, they will stay there for at least 2 weeks, where it's like a hotel service. There's food and after they throw on the photography package.
And talking about building your business, something that a lot of fence-sitters or many aspiring independent folks would be curious about is how do you exactly build a business? And I think for some of them, I do see the struggle. I do see the inability to switch the mode. Like for instance, I know people who have been a CTO, IT folks for the longest time. Oh, I want to become a fractional CTO. What, you mean I got to sell my service? And then they're stunned. They do not know what to do. How did that apply for you? How do you personally market and prospect it for your services?
When you start your own thing, the tendency to start boasting about yourself is very great, right? And you and I are on LinkedIn. You are the LinkedIn top noise. I only have 18,000 followers. But anyway, I think one of the things that I started doing was to start posting on LinkedIn. And why I started posting on LinkedIn was because I wanted a platform where I could write. And it wasn't so much, I didn't even know what personal branding was when I started. I'm naturally a writer and I want to write. And for me, LinkedIn is a platform, one, because I can write to my target audience, and two, I can tell my story so that people trust me. Because you can't build a business without trust. And if people don't trust you, they won't work with you. And ultimately, whatever you post on LinkedIn, likes don't pay the bills. You need to be able to teach, educate people, and then they will come in to try and work with you. So what I did was I started posting about my own struggles. Because as you know, LinkedIn is full of people, oh, I tripped over a rock today, this is what I learned. I hit onto the wall or something, 5 lessons I learned from this. So I saw all of that, and then I was like, this is not what I want to do. I want to come from it from another way, where I be as authentic, as vulnerable as possible. And as someone who's been through so much, I was arrested at 15, got arrested again at 16, and because I was planning a gang fight and all that. So I told all that story because it helps me to show that I'm not perfect. I have my own struggles, and your scars tell a story. So I started posting about that, and I find that it started becoming more relatable to people because a lot of people still struggle to find their authenticity, right? It's very surface level at the moment, and the vulnerability is also very surface level. So when I started sharing deeply without being controversial, because I try to give hot takes and all that, but I stay away from being controversial. And it's just my own story, right? It's something that you've asked me in the lift, I can answer you. I don't have to like try to ask ChatGPT what come up for me or something. So it's just from my own place of authenticity, and that has been good for my business in the sense that I started to get more interviews on podcasts. I started to get more leads ultimately. It wasn't overnight. It took about 4 months or 5 months where people started saying that, oh, now I trust Shawn. I've seen his consistency in sharing, and it's not like one-off thing. And that's when the leads come in. That's when I started getting more clients. And I don't sell myself as a personal branding expert. I tell people that I sell authenticity in the sense that I teach you how to write with being authentic. And that's what my masterclass is about. It's ultimately writing for different platforms, because ultimately you want to sell things through your content rather than just someone like, comment, share, and then.
Based on the way you approach your content right now, what is the biggest conversion or ROI? I know it's not the best way to put it, but basically, what's the biggest thing that actually came for you because of taking that authentic?
I always tell people, like, I rather get 10 likes on my post and 3 leads than 100 likes and no leads. I recently worked with a client, right? And I've known him since I was journalist days, and we kept in touch. But we never thought that we would work together in the client capacity. And when I started sharing my own story, right, he realized that he wanted to hire me to write for an award that he was going to enter. So it was like a personnel award, like 50 over 50 kind of leaders. He realized that he didn't know how to tell his story. Even though he's a CEO of multiple companies, he didn't really know how to tell his story authentically. When he saw my content, he was like, this is what I want. This is what I want. This is how I want to tell my story. So he hired me, we worked together. I basically interviewed him about, his life story, his struggle, his vulnerability, without, getting that too much of the humble bragging in. Previously, when I used to judge award entries, right, it was always like, oh, I bring this XX amount billion of business and all that. And then you realize it's not just him, it's his team. So I told him that he needed to be, upfront and vulnerable about working with his team and all that. So, and then ultimately he won the award and I get a good case study of it.
Authentic path is actually the most commonsensical path for many of us. It's like organic food, right? If all of us can afford, we of course want to go organic lah. Why you want to dump so much pesticide and growth hormone onto your food? But having said that, there's always this natural tendency to paint your story in a very, I would say in modern terms, a very dysfunctional manner. Like most recently, of course, we have the lady in Bali, Piyush Gupta and all that. And even until recently, I still have connections on LinkedIn trying to turn a very normal scenario around to something else, which basically is just giving themselves a pat on the back. And I think I personally feel this is overdone and nobody can take it anymore.
It's very surface level, right? And a lot of people don't want to either share too deeply or they don't know how to share without trauma dumping, without oversharing. Everybody has struggles. I don't believe that you live life without struggles. Everybody has struggles. And once you think about it deeply, once you reflect about it deeply, then from that place of struggle, you can share because someone else, you might be a few steps ahead in life, but someone a few steps behind might be able to take from your sharing. So you can't just share surface level stuff, and that's when you share surface level stuff, you get the DBS fake Piyush Gupta story, right? And if you share your own personal struggle, and your own personal struggle doesn't have to go into details, right? You don't have to say I did so and then blah 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 and all that. It's the lessons that people want to take away from it.
When you mentioned earlier on trauma dumping, it reminded me of someone who I've advised before to be authentic. And she mentioned, I don't want to share all my trauma online, which actually got me thinking about it. I think for a lot of people, they may not be able to see the line. Well, where's the line between authenticity and trauma dumping? Could you give us an example?
For example, today I posted about, using bathrooms is a challenge for me as a gender fluid person. But I don't go into like, oh, I feel so angry. I feel upset that Singapore is not advanced enough or diverse enough, or I screw the landlord, screw everybody for not having gender neutral toilet. I don't do that. I talk about the challenges, and then I talk about how it relates into a workplace and what leaders can help their workforce or their staff to be able to address these challenges. Yeah, so that's not trauma dumping. That's more like insights shared. Yeah, it's when you put your own personal feelings and emotions into it. Become a Facebook post, which is not for LinkedIn.
Become a Facebook rant.
Yeah, that's trauma dumping. So if you like I said, if you write with a target audience in mind, right, and even though you need to write with emotions, but your own personal emotions cannot come into your writing. So you write with a target audience in mind. So for me, when I write, like I say, my platform and my podcast is for my daughter, right? So whatever I write for my daughter with my daughter in mind. So I don't want to tell her about all my feelings, right? That one I can tell her offline, but I want her to be able to learn from things. So in a way, that helps other people to learn as well.
So basically, for people who are new to this, they need to imagine a target audience, which in your case is your daughter. In someone else's case, could be the spouse or whoever, and then write with that perspective in mind. It reminded me of someone mentioning, I think it's Ogilvy or some advertisement guru. Basically, what he's trying to say is, if you do not want If you do not want these ads, this copy to be shared with your family, don't write it. Yeah, basically ask you to write the gospel truth lah. Don't try to swing it to such a manner that if your family were to read it, they'll get scared.
If you think about it, right, whatever you do involves writing. Like you write an email to your boss, do you put your emotions into it? Do you put anything to it? Like the way you craft your email can be the same way you craft your LinkedIn post. Why do you need to put on another persona when you craft an email or LinkedIn post? I think the best part is the great insights, that's insightful, all that AI comments on LinkedIn, right? And you don't send that text over to people. So why do you comment about people post like that's great insight, that's insightful? You text your wife like that, you should be like, are you okay?
Don't text my wife as per our last message.
Correct. Oh, please remember by 6 p.m. whether you want dinner or not. A lot of people forget that you need to be human, right? Which is why I named my platform Human Algorithm. Which is why in the age of AI, being human has become almost a lost art already.
So tell us more about this human algorithm piece that you have. It's residing on
Substack.
Stack.
Yeah.
Okay. And could you share with us what does it actually covers on a week-to-week basis?
Every week I will post at least 3 to 4 times where I will share how to write. So basically, like maybe one day I can share about writing vulnerably without oversharing or trauma dumping. Or maybe the other day is how do you create your own story bank. So like let's say you go out and then some feelings hit you when you encounter something, you don't straight away post on LinkedIn. You don't it down first in Notion or in your notebook, and then you process it before you put it out for the world to see. So I teach things like that in my newsletter, and then I also post my podcast on my newsletter. You already monetize your podcast already. So for me, I'm still at the stage where I haven't monetized my podcast. But because my Substack is subscription based and there's a revenue in terms of paying subscribers, right? So essentially, I kind of monetize my podcast through my Substack. And then also every Sunday, I will post a thematic thing which is called Sunday Musings, where I write about sort of how I run a business, my philosophy of running a business, my philosophy of being a creator. So basically, it's the insights into behind the scenes kind of thing.
So you write about 3 times a week on weekdays?
Yeah. No, Monday to Sunday, maybe 3 to 4 times.
3 to 4 times. Oh, including the Sunday.
Yeah,
3 to
including
4
the
times.
Sunday,
Okay.
yeah.
That's a lot of writing.
My Sunday one, I try to keep it short, like 500 to 600, because I don't want to share the magic sauce, right? So I basically share how my stories have shaped my philosophy, my business philosophy and all that. And then the rest of the week, the pieces are a bit longer.
And how much time? So I want to go behind the scene of the behind the scene. How much time does it take for you to craft out or to crank out a typical episode?
As a one-person business, we need automation, right? And for me, I use a lot of AI tools. So for example, I will use Otter AI to record my thoughts. I use Grammarly to track my grammar. I use Notion to just brainstorm ideas, write down ideas. And I recently started using this AI platform called Cortex by this creator called Danko. Later you can put in the description also. But it's very helpful because it's a one-stop platform for all the GPT. So ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, everything, right? And through that, I can brainstorm like what does my business look like 5 years later from now, or what do I need to hit 10, or what do I need to hit 100K. So I just brainstorm with that, and that helps me to not just to save time but also save money, right? Like go out and take a business coach or hire a business coach to coach me. I brainstorm with the AI. So
the AI is really more like your 诸葛亮.
My virtual assistant.
But on the writing aspect, is there a reason why you are not using AI? Maybe not so much to help you write, but it could also play an editing role. It could play some other role.
I use Grammarly. I use Grammarly to check my grammar. And then sometimes I put in ChatGPT if I don't really like what Grammarly is doing. But then I find that if I use AI to write, right, then I still have to edit it. I still have to make it sound like me, and that takes up more time. Yeah, because if you realize, right, if you take what ChatGPT produces into, or whatever AI produces, right, into Grammarly, right, the grammar is all wrong. The grammar is all wrong. A lot of correction. So you are spending extra time to correct what AI is building or creating for you. So it doesn't make sense to me because I'm trying to save time, not to spend more time.
I'm actually taking a different approach. I am trying to cut down my time on writing, but not by not writing. I basically dictate instead of writing. So I'm not sure if you can see this particular hardware. This hardware, I got it some time back.
I thought it was a Fitbit.
It looks like a Fitbit, but it's actually a recorder. So if I turn it on, it can record our conversation, auto transcribe, push to my phone with a transcription, mind map, everything. It's fantastic. Yeah, but for normal case, I don't need it to be, mind map and all that. I just need a transcription that is as accurate as possible. So I usually do it on my phone. There's a recent app called Whisper with a wrong spelling, WHISPR or something, and it can recognize our accent really well. So I'm thinking of getting AI to be my ghostwriter, ask me 20 questions related to this. I answer one by one. It's like our oral during secondary school. And then with the transcript, turn it into a first draft.
The context that I just mentioned about, basically it interviews you. So it's not a ChatGPT, you create a prompt, right? So this one, there's 4 sections. One is where if you want to build a personal brand, you ask you like a few questions like what's your target audience, what are your pillars and all that. So in that sense, and then whatever it comes up for you, right? So it's partly, so the creator that created it, he wanted like ChatGPT Notion kind of thing. So whatever that the platform produces, you can save it as a document, and then next time you can just reference it. Yeah, so I think it's a bit like yours as well.
You come from a writing background. So for you, it's very easy to just transit from writing on others to writing on yourself. For the broader audience out there who may not have written anything beyond an email to the boss or email to procurement to request something, what are some baby steps that you would recommend for them to get started in the first place?
When you do a podcast or when you do your video script, it's still writing. So ultimately, you still need to write. You cannot escape from writing. But I think to your point, what the baby steps that they can do is to, find that you need to put in the reps. So you need to be consistent. So one day, this is self-plug, you can join my masterclass and I'll teach you all this, but very surface level now to briefly explain because we don't have a lot of time. I think one of the ways that I do is to find your content pillars. So try to find 3 pillars that you, like I say earlier just now, you can talk about it when someone asks you, and without being prompted, you can say immediately. So find that 3 content or I think 5 is too much, but 3 is enough where you can talk about it, you can write about it, and then to save time, you can reproduce it. So a LinkedIn post can become a newsletter, can become a podcast. And that's what I do. So in a way, I created a system where I write once and then it reproduces by itself, but for different audience. So that helps you to be clear on what you want to write. Because if I want to write about the same topic and I have to think about what I want to write for LinkedIn, for Instagram, for my newsletter, for my podcast, right, then I don't have enough time in the day to do that. So take one content, I repurpose it, but to target a different audience. So that's how you can write with your content pillars. Very easy.
I came from a podcast earlier today, have a recording there, and my client was just doing a lot of different video bites, a lot of reels. And honestly, sometimes through it, some of the reels, I'm like, it's so out of context. It's like all over the place. Yeah, and eventually after the recording, I actually told him, you need to have a content pillar. Right now you have 5. It's really too many. You want to talk about this one, any rando can talk about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't need you.
The best gauge to find is, can someone Google it? If someone can Google it, or I also use Perplexity, right? If someone can ask Perplexity about it, then why is your view important? Yeah. So even if someone can Google it, someone can use Perplexity, someone can listen to Eric Pateker about it, talk about it. But ultimately, your point of view is more important because no one else can replicate your live experiences. So you need to take this, whatever that you're writing about, to use your own story into it, weave your own story into it.
For your masterclass that you mentioned earlier on, where and when? Is it a virtual thing? Could you share a bit more on that?
It's a virtual thing that is ongoing at the moment, and it's a 6-week course. And tonight is the fourth session, so there's 2 more sessions left. And every week, what I will do is I will take people through different ways of, writing. And it's a very broad thing to say writing, right? But I also talk about, how do you don't trauma dump? How do you create a story bank? And one of the things that I make them do throughout the week is I give them homework. So like what you see today or what you experience this week, right? Write it down. Don't post it. Don't post it anywhere. You want to post it, maybe share in our WhatsApp group first. Yeah. So you take it, process it, and then I give them a framework that I teach them where you put it through the framework, and then if it matches what I teach in the framework, then feel free to write it. Then what I do every lesson, at the end of every lesson is also I will give live feedback to whatever someone has posted throughout the week.
As we come to the end of the show, for people who is also keen to learn more about yourself, what you do, I mentioned about the masterclass, we put that link into the show notes. Where else can they find you?
Human Algorithm, my newsletter, my podcast, which is on my Substack as well. You can watch the highlights of it on YouTube, and and maybe LinkedIn. You can follow me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn.
No humble brag.
I don't trip over rocks.
You walk very carefully.
I walk very carefully. Maybe that can be a pull. I walk very carefully.
That's not trip over rock.
I don't trip over rocks. These are things that you can take away from it.
By walking carefully. Shawn, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. This is a great setup, like in your condo, no less.